Okay, so we're talking about we're exploring the concept of IDEs in our very first lecture, where we then discovered that an IDE is integrated in the sense that it combines a simple text editor and a compiler or interpreter for the language being used. That's what makes it able to accept code as well as run, giving you output there and there. So, and that's hence the name IDE. And for our courses or for this module, the analysis of programming, we will be basically working more with the Jupyter notebook, which basically means Julian Python notebook. This is the guy who actually created the Jupyter. Um, the reason why we say it's called a notebook is in the sense that it's able to combine what we call markdown as well as code or Python statements, right? So you've got an area where you've got markdown, which is basically a markdown language or a language that's used to present things on a display. So we looked at superscripting, where we said it's a combination of the dollar sign and the up arrow, which is shift 6, will result in superscripting your text. Subscript, combination of dollar sign and underscore will result in subscripting your text. Then we looked at the different types of headers and title fonts that are there, where we say they are basically achieved by using the hash or a pound sign. Right. We looked at inserting images. Then we started exploring the code and defining what Python keywords, variables, string values, string literal. Importantly, we realized that there are different data types as well. And we also spoke about Python statements, where we say these are compiler executable lines, and comments, which we said they are not executed by the code. We then also looked into multi-line statements as well as single line and multi-line comments. We also explored the various data types that are there. Indentation, which looks at code blocking. So when you're creating a code block, you make use of indentation. What else? Yesterday we went deeper with exploration of data types, and we are today continuing on data types, specifically looking at Python strings, right? But probably before we get into that, allow me to give you this exercise and see if we can wait so chat. We are not as yet solving this, but I want you to have this in your question banks. Remind me when we are now doing. Remember, we talked about RA operators. So when we are going to be doing about dealing with conditional operators, um, remind me to look into that question and explain some concepts with that. Is that okay, Courage?
Yeah.
Great. So a string is remember on data types we covered to say they are primitive data types as well as user defined data types. So, and I explained yesterday to say um, the numeric data types that we find in Python, they are primitive data types. But however, we went on to explore other data types from the list, going downwards. All those there are examples of user-defined data types. How do I mean to when I say user-defined data types? Everything that is known as a class in Python is in a sense a data object. This will be a bit clearer when we cover classes. But just to note, everything that's called a class in Python is actually a data type of some sort that would have been created, right? And these data types that we are talking about, the list, the strings, and everything, they are Python classes that have been written by some other programmers. Oh, I forgot to mention to say Python is an open source programming language, which means to say people can publicly contribute to Python, and it comes, it's not subscriptable in terms of its use. They don't charge you to say subscribe, buy some licenses and everything. It's a free tool that's given to the community to use. So hence its widely adoption as well as high support, right? So one of the advantages of it being an open source software is anyone can contribute to the Python library and create their own packages, um, as well as long as the documentation is on point, they can then be adopted. So potentially any one of us, we are we can be contributors to the Python community. If we feel there is a library that hasn't been written yet that is crucial, we can then develop a package, have it uploaded and kind of available for everyone to use whosoever comes across the same challenge that it was created for. So when you talk about your pandas, your numpy, scikit, you name it, all those packages, they have been developed by other Python users for to make life simple for other programmers. So you don't necessarily have to redesign the wheel to solve a problem that was solved before. We just then share the packages and makes deployment and coding quite easy and reduces the time to market. Anyways, it was a tangent, but the gist was to explain that in like manner, strings have been developed, right? So it's a class that is, or a package that is being written, that we basically are given instruction on how to use it. So you realize one of the things that a class has is it takes in arguments, right? And after taking in what we call arguments, we are going to discuss what arguments are. It also contains what are called methods, right? And a method basically is what does the manipulation, right? So a string, like I've already alluded to, is a class, and that class contains several methods. How do I know that it is a class? In Python naming convention, a class starts with a capital letter. That's why every time when you, let me see if this works. Okay. This is strings. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I failed to get what I wanted to check. But what I'm saying is there are methods that have been embedded in the class string that allows us to carry out manipulations. And in like manner as we will discover, the same way we kind of manipulate strings, there are also similar ways we also manipulate strings, sorry, lists, similar ways we manipulate dictionaries. They may have differences here and there, but once you grasp the concept of manipulating strings, it will be easier to correlate the same manipulations to any other data type. Hence the reason I said yesterday, we will discuss strings in more detail and depth, looking into the functions that do manipulate, or methods that do manipulate the string class, right? And for now, we've defined a string as anything within the quotes. So when I say this is my name, right, and probably do a print. What I've put inside the quotes is the string, right? So if I come and say type, you realize it tells you that this thing is of what type string. And same applies if we use single quotes. So in Python, single quotes and double quotes work exactly the same way, right? So the question will be, why do we have either the double or the single, or when can you choose to use double or you use single? Is there anyone who would want to try to explain where it suits to use single quotes and double quotes? Who hasn't spoken ever since we started the lectures? Let me check. Hi, Evelyn. Angel, do you want to try? Come on, guys, there are no wrong answers.
Hi. I'll try. I think for using double quotes, it'll be an instance where you might need to use single quotes within the string itself.
And you are spot on.
Then I'm not.
That is actually the reason.
I'm not really so sure of.
So basically, like what you've said, if you want to display a string value that has got quotes within it, right? You rather use the strings that you have used in the outer sides of the to code the whole string should not be the same quotes that you use within. So if you want to print, for example, apologies, a message that says, and I quote, she said, so these strings, the double strings that are enclosed within the single quotes, so the double quotes that are enclosed within the single quotes, they become part of the string value, right? And the single quotes become part of the string literal. So when I then print, the single quotes will disappear, but the double quotes will will actually show. And the opposite is true. If I use double quotes first, within the string value, I'll have to use the single quotes. Right? So the single quotes become part of the string value. Right? So this is the reason why we've got either single or double quote. It's there to help the programmer make templates of their string values, right? Then we said a variable takes the data type of the data value it holds, right? In this case, when we evaluate type A, it becomes a string, right? And we have created in this particular instance a memory block that code A that holds the value, my name is Tichabo Navakisai. Now, I can evaluate the number of characters that is in that phrase. So I can come and say length A, right? It will return to me an integer value, right? To say it is counted. So how does it count? You realize the count of includes all characters, including space characters, right? So in this case, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So it includes even the space count, right? So the moment we know and we can evaluate the length of our string, we may have things like, okay, I possibly would want to, I want to retain just only the name, the first name in that string, right? It brings us to a concept of slicing and dicing. Right? Where this is a process of taking part of a collection and retain it for other purpose, right? So this is what slicing and dicing is all about. So I can take just this part of the whole string. I don't want to go and overwrite, but I'll just want to extract just the first name out of that string. So what I'll do is, because I know my string is of length 28, right? I can actually evaluate at what point is t. For now, I'll do it the simple way, which is the manual, until we're going to discuss some more sophisticated ways of doing that. So I'll simply say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my t is what is at position 12. So if I come and say, show me what is at position 12, this is where we then use the square brackets. And we are saying, show me what is at index 12. Now, I have counted in the natural human counting, where I start at 1. If I do A12, it will not give me T, right? It will actually give me space. So it gave me, yeah, it gave me I, that's correct. The reason why it gave me I, though in my natural physical count I is on position 13, is because the computer starts counting at 0, which is what we call indexing. I don't know why my computer is slow. Right. So we are saying indexing is the numbering of memory block cells within a memory space, right? So it's as if, remember we said when we create a variable, we create a memory. So it's going to take that memory block that contains that value and put like a small tiny blocks where each and every character sits. Where M is not exactly where Y is, in as much as they share the major space, the bigger space. Y will sit on its own in that memory space, and this is the index where we are saying where is Y sitting, right? So that indexing is what starts at 0. So in computing, indexing starts at 0, right? So when I'm counting, I will have to count starting from 0. So I'll say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I then realize my t actually falls at position 11. So if I want to extract t, I'll just say a, give me what's at index 11, right? Then I'll get my t. Now I know my t spans from position 11, but what will be the last position, right? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So my A will be at position 19. Let me just evaluate and see if that's correct. You see, this is the first letter and this is the last letter. So it means we could call each and every letter here, right, one by one. But when it prints out that, it won't print the whole name being concatenated. Yeah, we could do it this way. A plus A12 plus A13 plus A14 plus I'll stop at A15 for now, right? If we do it this way, yes, we get teacher, right? But this is too manual and laborious a way of getting to extract teacher out of that variable, right? So we would rather slice the variable. So slicing is we then come and take a range. We specify the starting point and the ending point. Now, in terms of Python boundaries, that's the space containing the letters teacher that I want. The starting point, which is A11, becomes my lower boundary, and the ending point 15 will most likely become my ending or my outer boundary or my upper boundary. However, in terms of the way Python works, the lower boundary is inclusive. However, the upper boundary is exclusive. So if I write in this case that I want to slice my variable and take the letters from the starting point, which is A11, which is where I've got my T, and I want to end at 15, right? Let's print and see what happens. You see, I get something like teach. And before I speak about this, I would want to at least explain a bit about the notation, right? What that means when I say A bracket 11 full colon 15, I'm saying go into the string variable A and grab for me all the elements that are from position 11 up to position 15, right? But I have spoken about the upper boundary being exclusive. So it's saying, in essence, go and grab all the elements between position 11 to 15, but exclude the element that is at position 15 and just get what's the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th. This is the reason why we got teach. But if I want to include the other A, I'll probably have to now end at what? At position 16. That's how I then get the full name teacher. Right? Do we get the concept?
Yes.
Great if you are following. Great stuff. So the initial full name that I wanted, I know the last letter that that last A was on percent 19. So because the upper boundary is exclusive, I'll then use 20. So you find it becomes easier to extract the specific portion of a string that I want, right? Without changing the variable value. So if I come here and try to evaluate what is in A, you still realize that my A still holds the full string. Right? But of the full string, I can manipulate it to get only the portion that I want, and so I can actually then use it in a template like print he said his name was ndobva ndati panapa A however this would not work because it's within a string value. So I have to find something to show to tell the code that don't take this as a value but take it as a string literal, right? So I can then come here and put a placeholder, using curly brackets, right? Then come here. I know I promised you that we'll talk about string templates. So you see what it does. It then takes just the first name. So the string that I had initially is what my name is Tichaona, but I've used Tichaona in a completely different sentence without explicitly typing Tichaona. Right? So these are some of the uses of slicing, where we can take certain data, do certain manipulations, combine it with something else, do further processing, and until we get the data to be in the format that we now want it to be, the final output that is acceptable. So you realize slicing and dicing is quite important when we do data exploration, or what is called the EDA, the exploratory data analysis. So the process of exploratory data analysis includes data cleaning, and data cleaning is, there is no way you can achieve full data cleaning without the understanding of slicing and dicing. Okay, moving on. We've realized that you can manipulate that way. What else can we do with strings? We can check the length. We can remove certain characters that we do not desire. Or we can, before we talk about removing, let's talk about splitting. We can split a string into the splits that we so want, right? Suppose I want to split this string into, I have the portion that says my name is, then I leave the rest on the back side to create specifically 2 splits. I'll have to think about what's in between these two things, right? So if I had maybe another character like this, it will be easier for me. Let me run this. It will be easier for me to just say I call a function that is called split. I say a dot split, and I tell it where do you split. You look for this character. Where you find this character, split it and make what? And create what? Two names. So you see, I've got the first part, which is my name is, then I've got another part that says Tichawana Vaksai. It's easier when there is a specific character to look for. But in the sense where I have a space, but I want to split it into two, when I just say go and look at where the space is, it will then split my name to be two different elements. Name and is another two separate elements. Is and Tichawana separate elements. Tichawana and Vaksai separate elements. So let's see if what I'm talking about is true. A dot split. So if it is separated by a space, you don't have to put any argument. An argument is what comes in the parentheses or in the round braces, right? So whatever value that or thing that you put here is what we are referring to as an argument. So we're saying if the argument is a space, you don't put anything. You just call the function without any argument. You see, it gives me this split where it has split everything that is separated by space, right? But however, if I take the same function and provide some arguments, right? I'll say here n equals to 1. Sorry, 1, 2, 3. Let me use 3. Sorry. All right. 1, 2. So I then realized that the function. So one other thing, suppose you get stuck, you're writing your code, you don't know what arguments a certain function takes. There is a way to get around it. When you press Shift and Tab, right, it will give you all the arguments that you can include in that function. in the docstring, right? So you then decide which function to take, which argument to take, and it also gives you specifications of the default values that come with the function. So if you know there's something that called that's called for what, for example, remove. Let me do that before I speak about split. If I do shift tab, why is it not responding now? So it means this one doesn't have any arguments. Hope. What's happening with this notebook? Also, I don't know why my notebook is responding way too slow. Okay, so I've used another one that's called replace. So you see, it gives me all the documentation that is known about replacing. To say you can choose, you specify the old, what you want to replace, and what you want to replace with it, and you can even include the counter, like, and then it explains what count is, maximum number of occurrences to replace. So if there is something that appears probably 5 times, but I want to replace the first 3 times, I'll then have to set my counter. By default, it comes with this value -1, right? And so forth. So this is if when you are stuck sometime writing code, you will never get to know everything there is about Python. And like I said, Python is open source and it is ever updated. Right now we are talking about Python 3.10, right? Yet most of us probably are still using Python 3.7, 3.5, where it depends. So you may not know everything there is to Python, but there is a way to find out through what is called documentation, right? But anyway, I was talking about splitting. I'm seeing the version here no longer allows me to make a mention of an occurrence at what position do I want to split. It's now giving the maximum splits that I can make. So I can specify to say I want to split this a maximum number of times once. So it comes and looks for the first space and splits it there. Then everything else remains what? The same. If I it becomes another string. If I say 2, it looks for the specified separator, right, and makes 2 splits at the instance of where that separator exists. So because the first space was between my and name and name and is, it then came and made those 2 splits there, and the remainder becomes uh, a string on its own, right? So this unfortunately I haven't been able to demonstrate what I wanted. So yeah, this version no longer allows me to do so. So let's move on to replacing, right? Um, Suppose you want to replace every v with b, right? You come, you say a dot replace the old is v, and all arguments within a function, they are separated by a comma. So if you're in this case, this function, I only gave it one argument, but where I need to provide, or where it takes more than one argument, I have to separate those arguments using a comma, right? So what's the new thing that I want to replace with is b, right? And number of what occurrence or replacements, I want to replace this first v, so I'll come and say 1, right? Let me try and see what that happens. So you see my name is Tichabona, like I say, it didn't then replace the other v. But if I had said if I had not put this argument, it will replace all the occurrences. Why didn't it replace all? Oh, sorry, it's looking for they are different in their capitalization. Okay. Let me work with A then. Let me work with A. Right? And replace it with B. Right? So, you see it has replaced every A with a B. Right? But if I want to only replace the first two, I'll then have to come and specify to say for only two occurrences. So here it did not change because it is only replaced here and here, right? So sometimes if you don't include so there are two things that I'm mentioning here. Number one, if you don't put an argument, or if you don't explicitly list an argument, it will take a default value in that function or in that keyword. But if you then make mention of a specific variable and give it a value, it will then execute with the new value. It will override the default values. Then in this case, I did not specify to say what does A mean, right? But I've used positioning. So I note in my function, it first takes the old, then takes new, then takes count. So I just list those arguments in that order. Or I can come and say old equals new equals count equals, right? So text no keyword arguments. So with this one it doesn't take, but you realize there are some methods that do take, that you would need you to specify, especially when we work with pandas. We'll discover that there are times when you need to make use of. So if you don't then specify, if there are any other arguments in between that come before it in the definition of the function, it will give you an error to say, because it will assign according to the order of mentioning within the script that wrote that function, right? So this is the replace function. What else can we do with strings? We can remove, I guess.
Hello?
Hello?
Sorry, still on that one. You said Skeletica is 2 upper. What's the meaning of that 2? Replace like the second A, or it as a, because
It replaces the first two occurrences.
The first 2 occurrences.
Yes, so it replaces the first A and the second A.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right. So if you want to replace O, you can either leave it or you can put -1 as the value. It will replace O. So you see here there was an A, it replaced it. Here there was an A, it replaced it. Here there was an A, there was an A, and there was an A here. But if you want only the first 2 occurrences, you then say the first 2. Then the other A's are ignored.
So I experimented with the -1 actually, and I'd seen replacing the O.
Yeah.
So I think I was going to bring a question of why not -2, then removing 1 and so forth, but I think it's clear. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Yes, so -1 is what has been defined as the default to say, I mean, logically think of it. You can't replace -1 things. So ideally, there is no way of replacing a negative. So that's why it was used as when they were defining. That's why they used it to mean infinity, right? But every other number in the positive direction, you can custom specify it. Okay. Let's try and remove A. Okay, now how do I do? It's now pop. All right, so this is another trick again that I will show you. Because I created my A, right? Where is it? Here. I created my A being of type string. So in proper programming language, we call it an instance of the class. So the instance of the class automatically inherits or has got access to all the methods of the class. So if I say A dot, I'll explain what the dot means later on. It's there to just call. So if I don't know what string, what function is available in that class, if I press tab, it will bring all the functions and attributes applicable. So in this case, I can see there's something called capitalize, case fold, send, account, encode, ends with, expand, tabs, find, format, format map, index, and so forth. Is alphanumeric, is alpha, is ASCII, and so forth. So all those you can then, for example, let me use this one, find, right? If I do the function, it asks me to say sFind sub start end and so forth. So it's basically saying you have to define where you are starting, returns the lowest index in S where the substring is found. So I can actually say I want to find where name is, right? Remember that at the time we were actually counting manually, but you don't have to count. You can actually use the find function, right? It's telling you to say it starts from what? From 3. Then you can then come and do your splitting, your slicing rather, to say go and take from 3. Then you know it's if name is only 4 letters, so 3 plus 4, the upper bound becomes 7. If you do so, you can actually return name, right? Same applies. Which other one do you want us to explore? Let me use is digit. I'll explain is digit, then explain is alpha, is alnum, is lower, is Chesachina is out. That I'll then explain what it means to say is. Right? Is digit, it's there to evaluate whether, remember we spoke about, let me just create another variable here to be able to explain what I want to explain. Let's create B and equate it to 56, right? Type B, definitely we know it's a string, right? But this string, we know it's a string that contains numbers. So you would, at times, would want to just evaluate whether the string is something that contains numbers that we can typecast into a numeric data type. So if I say A dot is digits, it will go and evaluate whether A can be converted into a numeric form. Then it will return a Boolean data type, whether true or false. So if it is a data type that can be converted to digits, it will say true. If it is a data type that cannot be converted to a digit, it will say what? False. So in this case, if I then do B evaluation is digit, right? You realize it will give me true because you can, in actual fact, convert B to what? To a numeric data type. So all other functions that are anana is they are just meant to, this one is meant to evaluate whether it's alphanumeric. So it's B, it's numeric. Don't know if it's going to give true for, because numeric is also part of alphanumeric. Yeah, it will say true, right? And A also will be alphanumeric because it has alphabetical what? Letters. True. Alpha, okay, it's not alphanumeric, it's all alpha, right? So everything that is got is only there to evaluate. This one will be true. Is alpha. Why not? What is A? 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 Alpha. It's alpha vertical. Okay, it beats my logic why it's saying false for my name is Chawanawakisai. I don't know why it's refusing to evaluate it as, oh, it, okay, is alpha, it's when suppose I assign, there is a string and there is a character. So will this make sense? Letter equals A, right? If I then come and say letter dot is alpha, it then evaluates true. So that one it's saying it's not a letter of the alphabet. That's why it was evaluating false here. So we can explore all other functions that can manipulate strings. I don't know if we've got any questions, any additions, subtractions on what we have covered so far.
Well, it's okay for my side for now.
I like that for now.
Well, I think for me, I'm just joining today. So maybe asking two main questions will be bringing everyone else, like where you guys have already covered. I think when I've gone through some videos links that you shared with me with videos, I think I'll be able to ask. Because for me, I want to be linking everything to how they question, how they ask in the
exam. Are very true.
For that. So it's now upon me to make sure that when we meet for the next session, maybe at par with everyone else.
That's all right, but I would also encourage you to even ask because as we also do this, we also want to reinforce on the aspects that we've learned before. You'll be surprised to say you bring up a question that will be beneficial to everyone else. My thinking.
Or it's okay. Anything, I will just be asking.
That's all right. Courage, you haven't said anything today. Are you there?
I am alive. I am alive.
Zviri kuita hazvo.
Hello?
Yes, Amanda.
Okay, I noticed something. What's the difference between, like, let's say I want to run something. I've seen in some instances you write print, and then in some instances you just run without typing anything.
Okay.
Where exactly do we use print and?
Okay, I'll answer you in two ways. It depends. Part of programming, it's really art. Really, you have to visualize the result that you want, right? If I come here and just call A, it will give me A with these codes, right? To signify that A is of data type string. But I know these codes are part of of the string literal, right? It's because I've created this A using single quotes, right? Well, but I know whenever I call a variable, it gives me the value that is in that variable. So this will actually work in Python because I'm just referencing a memory space to say go into A and tell me what A has. So it will bring me inclusive of things that are part of the string literal. However, when I then say print A, you realize it doesn't include what? It gives me a string value instead of a string literal. So it's really how you want it to come out and present it. I don't know if I've really answered you.
Yes, thank you.
It's all right. Thank you for that question. Another question? Evelyn, we last heard your voice in years.
Hi, sir. For now, I don't have any questions.
Thank you so much. Um, Angel.
Well, what I have might send people into panic mode. Anyway, I was just looking at the way we're doing things. I like the pace. We're getting to understand things, but at the back of my mind, I was thinking we are maybe probably going to have our exams very soon, maybe in May, somewhere there about. Will we be able to cover much ground by that time going at this pace? The pace is okay, but just that ndakushka kuti exam rapadhuze. That's what I'm just thinking. So I
The
really don't
exam,
know.
is it? Are you not writing in May?
Pardon?
Are the exams not in May?
The, the timetable is not yet out, but from the communique that was sent concerning fees and everything, they'd highlighted that fees should be paid before exams in May. So that's where I'm taking it from. That you may be having exams then.
Yes. Certainly at this pace, I assure you, by the time we get to the exams, you'll be ready. I will reiterate, these fundamentals help us move with pace when we get when after we've really grasped this, because kumberuko kwese, you see, after we've covered strings, we won't delve much into lists, because we just basically telling you list is a class that has got its own methods, and like what we have discovered with strings, you can literally discover what the methods are, and same applies to any other data type that is of advanced nature. So this is the reason why I'm deliberately slow on the foundational building blocks, so that when we then cover this so-called complex stuff, you then be able to break it down into the small aspects that make up the complex program. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. It's not a problem.
All right.
I think that's what people need to do to understand everything before we get into the difficult stuff.
Yes. Then I think maybe now that you've highlighted that, um, how many modules were you looking at covering before exams? Or is something maybe that you may need to discuss among yourself and revert back?
I think it's something that we all have to discuss because probably you might have strengths in different areas, and you might know where we are lacking individually, and we just try to work out how much we need covered by then.
Okay. That's okay. I'll leave it up to you. But maybe in good time, if you can also notify me the modules that you'll be looking at. But as a personal recommendation, ML and analytics of programming, they are all bedrocked on Python knowledge. Then data visualization and statistics, they are bedrocked on knowledge of R programming. Then database is one that's on its own, which is SQL. So you realize certain concepts that we will be doing, like we have covered slicing, which is a fundamental tool in data cleaning for when you're doing your exploratory data analysis for machine learning. So doing Python, you are basically attacking two subjects at once. So yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I think we'll just do as Angela said, we'll discuss amongst ourselves and come up with a decision. I think we'll notify you as soon as
That's
we
all right.
discuss.
Anyway, thank you so much. I'll be sharing the notebook as well as the recording. All the best. I'll see you. That's now Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Great. And those that can, there is I'll think of the name of the application. The one that also helped me develop and hone my programming skills. There is a mobile application that you can actually, as you are traveling home, if you're not driving, that is, you can actually be practicing programming, Python programming on your phone. It's lightweight and it only requires. Does it require data? I can't remember whether it requires data or not. But it teaches you Python and then gives you exercises at the end of each lesson. So if you're someone who's quite glued to their phone, you can also remind me to give you that application name.
Well, I think I know two. There's Python and the other one is Grasshopper, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, those ones. But I've not used those ones. I don't have personal experience myself. But I'm sure people can also explore them. Right, thank you very much and have a very good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.